"Mom's sick, so I came." The little girl entered the Vampire King's castle. He froze when he saw her. Tall black trees stood like silent watchers, their branches twisted together as if whispering secrets only the night could hear. No birds sang here. No wind dared to move freely. Even the moon seemed afraid, hiding behind thin clouds as though it did not wish to see what lived beyond the trees. A little girl walked alone along the narrow stone path. Her shoes were worn. Her cloak was too big for her small body, slipping off one shoulder. She held it tightly around herself, not because of the cold, but because fear pressed against her heart like a heavy hand. Still, she did not stop walking. At the end of the path stood a castle. It rose from the dark earth like a shadow made solid, tall towers, sharp edges, walls black as night itself. People called it many names: the castle of bloodless stone, the throne of eternal night, the home of the Vampire King. No living soul went there by choice. Yet the girl lifted her chin and walked forward. Behind those walls lived the Vampire King, ruler of the cursed lands, feared by humans and immortals alike. Stories said he had no heart, that he fed on fear, that he had forgotten mercy long ago. The girl had heard the stories. But she had also heard her mother coughing in the night, felt her shaking hands grow weaker each day. She had seen the healer turn away with sad eyes and say there was nothing more to be done. So the girl walked. When she reached the great iron gates, taller than any mountain she had ever seen, she stopped. Her hands trembled as she lifted them and knocked. The sound echoed, small, soft, almost swallowed by the dark stone. For a long moment nothing happened. Then the gates slowly opened with a deep, heavy sound, as if the castle itself were waking from sleep. Two guards stepped forward. They were not human. Their eyes glowed faintly and their faces were pale as marble. Their armor was old, marked by time, yet they stood perfectly still. One guard looked down at the girl. "Why are you here?" he asked, his voice flat and cold. The girl swallowed. Her heart beat fast, but she remembered her promise to herself. She would not cry. "My mom is sick," she said softly, "so I came." The guards stared at her, unsure if they had heard correctly. "You came here," the other guard said. "To this place," she nodded. "I need to see the king." A long silence followed. The castle seemed to lean closer, listening. "No one asks to see him," the first guard said. "People run from him." The girl looked past them into the darkness beyond the gate. "I don't have anywhere else to go," she whispered. Something in her voice, quiet but strong, made the guards hesitate. At last one turned away. "Wait here," he said. The gates closed halfway behind her, leaving her standing between worlds. The forest of fear behind her, the castle of nightmares before her. Far inside the castle, high above stone halls and dark corridors, the Vampire King sat upon his throne. He had ruled for centuries. Time no longer moved the same way for him. Days and years blurred together, each one heavy with memory and regret he refused to name. His throne room was vast and cold, lit by dark fire that gave no warmth. He sat still like a statue carved from shadow, his long black cloak falling around him like night itself. Then he felt it, a strange pull in the air, not hunger, not anger, recognition. His fingers tightened slightly on the arm of the throne. "Who enters my gates?" he asked, though no one had spoken yet. A servant knelt before him, head lowered. "A child, my king," the servant said carefully. "A human child." The king's eyes darkened. "Send her away." "She says her mother is dying," the servant added. The king turned his head slowly. For 1,000 years, pleas had washed over him like rain against stone. He had learned not to listen. Yet something pressed against his chest, sharp and unexpected. "Bring her," he said. The servant froze, then bowed deeply and hurried away. Moments later, the great doors of the throne room opened. The girl stepped inside. The room was too large, too empty. Her footsteps echoed loudly as she walked forward. The dark flames flickered, casting long shadows that moved like living things across the walls. At the far end sat the Vampire King. He did not move as she approached. His presence filled the room, heavy and overwhelming. The air felt thicker, harder to breathe. The girl stopped several steps away from the throne. She looked very small. The king finally looked at her, and everything inside him stopped. Her eyes, wide, dark, steady, were the same eyes he had seen long ago, not just similar, the same. The shape of her face, the quiet strength in the way she stood, it was impossible. The world tilted. Memories he had buried rose without mercy. Laughter in sunlight, hands warm in his, a promise spoken beneath an open sky. His breath caught. "This cannot be," he said softly, more to himself than to anyone else. The girl looked up at him. "Are you the king?" she asked. He did not answer right away. "Yes," he said at last. She took a deep breath. "My mom is sick," she said again. "Everyone says she will die, but someone told me you can fix anything, please." The word please echoed in the vast room. The king stood. The sound of his movement was sharp in the silence. He stepped down from the throne, his long step slow, controlled. He stopped in front of her, towering above her like a living shadow. He searched her face, his mind racing. "What is your mother's name?" he asked. The girl frowned slightly, thinking. "She's called Alara," she said. The name struck him like a blade made of memory. His hand clenched at his side. Impossible. Alara had died centuries ago. He had watched the light leave her eyes. He had cursed the world in his grief. And yet— "Where is she now?" he asked, his voice lower. "In our village," the girl replied. "She's very tired. She sleeps all the time. I didn't tell her I was coming here." The king turned away, walking a few steps as though the stone floor had suddenly grown unstable beneath him. If this was a trick, it was a cruel one. If it was fate, it was worse. "Why did you come alone?" he asked, not looking at her. "Because if I waited, she might not wake up again," the girl said simply. Silence fell again. For the first time in centuries, the vampire king felt fear. Not fear of death, fear of hope. He turned back to her. "You do not know who I am," he said. "You do not know what I have done." She shook her head. "I only know my mom needs help." The king closed his eyes briefly. Against all reason, he felt something break open inside his chest, something he had locked away long ago. "Stay here tonight," he said. "You will be given food and a bed." The girl's eyes widened. "You'll help her?" she asked. "I did not say that," he replied. But he did not send her away. As servants led the girl from the room, the king remained standing, staring at the place where she had been. The castle felt different now, unsettled, awake. Far away beyond the walls, something ancient stirred. And deep within the vampire king's heart, a truth whispered that he could no longer ignore. The child's presence was not an accident, and her arrival would change everything. Morning did not truly exist inside the vampire king's castle. Light never entered freely. It filtered through tall windows like a stranger who did not belong, pale and unsure. The stone walls held the cold of many centuries, and the air carried a quiet weight, as if the castle itself remembered too much. The little girl woke on a soft bed far larger than any she had known before. Silk curtains surrounded her, and the room smelled faintly of old roses and rain. For a moment she thought she was dreaming. Then she remembered her mother, the forest, the king. She sat up quickly. A servant stood near the door, holding a tray of warm food. "You are safe," the servant said gently. "Eat. You will need strength today." The girl nodded, though her heart felt tight. "Is my mom here?" "Not yet," the servant replied, "but she will be." Far below, in the deepest hall of the castle, the vampire king stood alone. He had not rested. All night, memories had followed him like shadows. He had walked through empty halls, past old portraits covered in dust, past doors he had sealed long ago. Everywhere he went, the name Alara echoed in his thoughts. It could not be her. And yet the child's blood sang with a magic he knew too well. It was not dark, not cursed. It was old, powerful, familiar. At sunrise, his scouts returned. "She is real," one said. "The woman lives in a human village by the river. She is weak. The sickness is deep." The king closed his eyes. "Bring her," he said, "with care, no fear." The scouts hesitated, surprised by his tone, then bowed and vanished. By evening, the castle gates opened once more. A woman stood there, supported by two guards. Her hair was dark and loose around her shoulders. Her skin was pale, her step slow, but her eyes were sharp with quiet strength. She did not bow. She did not beg. She looked up at the castle walls, then forward, her gaze steady. "I want my daughter," she said. Inside the throne room, the vampire king felt something twist painfully in his chest. The guards brought her before him. She raised her head and met his eyes. The world seemed to stop. She was older than the woman he remembered. Time had touched her face, lines of care and loss marking her beauty. But it was her, not a dream, not a ghost, Alara. She frowned slightly, studying him. "You are the king," she said. "Yes," he replied. "You brought me here," she said. "Why?" He did not answer right away. "You came because your child came first," he said carefully. Her eyes widened. "She's here." Her voice broke for the first time. "Is she safe?" "She is unharmed," he said. "She is strong." Alara let out a breath she had been holding. "Then let her see me," she said. "And then let us go." The king stepped down from his throne. "You are dying," he said quietly. Her jaw tightened. "I know. I can stop it." She looked at him sharply. "Nothing is free." "No," he agreed. Silence stretched between them. "What do you want?" she asked. He searched her face, hoping foolishly for recognition. She showed none. "I will cure you," he said. "Your sickness will fade, your strength will return, your child will be protected." "And the price?" she asked. "You will stay," he said, "in this castle." Her eyes darkened. "As what?" she demanded. He hesitated. "Under my protection," he said at last. "I am not your prisoner," she said firmly. "No," he replied. "You are my guest." She laughed softly, without humor. "There is no difference in a place like this." He did not deny it. "Let me see my daughter," she said again. Moments later, the little girl ran into the room. "Mom!" she cried. Alara knelt despite her weakness, holding her tightly. The child clung to her, tears finally spilling free. "I told you not to go alone," Alara whispered, though her voice shook. "I had to," the girl said. "He can help you." Alara looked up at the king, her eyes filled with both fear and anger. "If you hurt her," she said quietly, "this world will not forgive you." Something in her words struck him deeply. "I swear," he said, his voice low, "no harm will come to her." That night the king began the healing. He did it in secret. Ancient magic filled the chamber, symbols glowing faintly in the dark. It was power forbidden even to him, drawn from his own cursed life. Alara slept as the spell wrapped around her. Pain followed, not hers, his. He clenched his teeth as his vision blurred, his strength draining with every breath she took. The curse that bound him resisted, pulling back, warning him. He ignored it. When the spell ended, Alara's breathing was steady. Color returned to her face. The king staggered back into the shadows. Over the next days, Alara grew stronger. She walked the gardens, watched over her daughter, and spoke little to the king. When she did, her words were careful, guarded. "You saved me," she said once. "Why?" He did not answer. Instead, he watched her from a distance, torn between longing and restraint. Every smile she gave her child cut him deeply. Every moment of kindness reminded him of the man he once was and the monster he became. Power still stood between them. He was king. She was mortal, but slowly something changed. She began to see his silences, his control. The way he turned away when hunger darkened his eyes, the way he never touched her without permission. "You could force me to stay," she said one evening. "Yes," he replied, "but you don't." "No. Why?" "Because I already lost you once," he said softly. "I will not do so again by choice." She looked at him then, truly looked, and for a brief moment something flickered in her memory, like a dream she could not hold. That night, far beyond the castle walls, ancient beings felt the shift. The vampire king was weakening. And love, once buried, was waking again. The castle was changing. Not in ways the eye could easily see, but in how it breathed, how it listened. The dark halls no longer felt fully silent. The shadows did not rest as easily as before. Something ancient had been disturbed, and it was watching. Alara felt it first. She stood on a balcony overlooking the black forest, her hands resting on the cold stone. Her strength had returned, yet unease followed her like a thin mist. At night she dreamed of fire and moonlight, of hands reaching for hers across time she could not remember. Below, her daughter played in the garden, laughter echoing softly. The sound still surprised the castle, as if joy were a guest it did not know how to welcome. "You should not stand in the cold so long." The vampire king's voice came from behind her. She did not turn right away. "You healed me," she said, "but you did not tell me the truth." He stepped beside her, careful to keep distance. "There are many truths," he replied. "Some are dangerous." "I am already living in danger," she said quietly. "I deserve to know." He looked at her then, truly looked, and saw the same courage that had once undone him. "The magic I used," he said, "is tied to my curse." She turned toward him. "What does that mean?" "It means my strength is fading." Her breath caught. "You are dying." "No," he said, "not yet." "But you will," she said. "Yes." Silence stretched between them. "Why would you do that?" she asked. "For me?" "For her," he said, glancing toward the garden where the child laughed. "And because I could not watch you fade again." The word again echoed in her mind. She shook her head. "You speak as if we shared a past." "We did," he said. Her heart began to race. "I don't remember you." "I know." That night the truth could no longer remain hidden. The king led Alara into a hidden chamber beneath the castle, where old magic slept. Symbols were carved into the walls, glowing faintly as they entered. The air felt heavy, like memory itself. "This is where my curse was sealed," he said. "What curse?" she asked. He faced her, his expression open in a way she had never seen. "I was once human," he said, "a king who chose power over mercy. When you died," she stepped back sharply, "you said you would not lie to me." "I am not," he said. "You died long ago. I watched it happen. My grief turned into rage. I made a vow to never feel weakness again." "And that made you this?" she asked, gesturing to the dark stone and shadows. "Yes." She struggled to breathe. "You believe I am her," she said slowly. "I know you are not the same," he replied. "But your soul carries her echo. Fate brought you back into my path." "And my child," she whispered, "what is she?" The king's jaw tightened. "She is bound to the curse," he said. "Her life exists because mine does." The world seemed to tilt. "What are you saying?" Alara asked. "If the curse remains," he said, "it will eventually take her." Alara's eyes filled with tears. "You let us stay here knowing this," she said, her voice shaking. "I am trying to break it," he said urgently. "But the curse demands a choice." "What choice?" He looked away. "Love," he said. She laughed once, bitter and broken. "You cannot ask that of me." "I will not force it," he said. "That is the rule. Love given freely breaks the curse. Love bound by fear destroys everything." Her chest ached. "And if I do not love you?" she asked. "Then I will destroy myself," he said, "before the curse can reach her." Alara stared at him in disbelief. "You would die?" she whispered. "Yes." Days passed under the weight of that truth. Alara watched him more closely now. She saw how he weakened, how the dark fire dimmed when he walked past. She saw how he turned away when her daughter ran to him, afraid to grow too close. The child, however, had no such fear. "Why are you sad?" she asked him one afternoon. He knelt slowly. "Because some stories do not end the way we wish." She thought for a moment, then hugged him. "You don't feel scary," she said simply. His hands trembled. Far beyond the castle, danger gathered. Other rulers felt the shift in power. Old enemies whispered of opportunity. Armies began to move. One night Alara dreamed clearly for the first time. She stood in sunlight holding a man's hand. He laughed, younger, human. Love filled her chest so strongly it hurt. She woke with tears on her face. Memory did not return fully, but feeling did. At dawn, the king stood on the highest tower watching storm clouds gather. Alara joined him. "I remember pieces," she said softly. Hope flared in his eyes and he crushed it down. "Do not force it," he said. I will not bind you with guilt." She looked at him, truly looked, and saw not a monster but a man standing at the edge of his end. Below them, horns sounded in the distance. The war had come, and the choice could no longer wait. The sky above the castle was heavy with dark clouds. They moved slowly, like they were waiting for something to happen. The air felt thick, filled with old magic and fear that had no name. The castle gates stood closed, but the ground itself seemed to listen, as if the world knew this night would decide everything. The Vampire King stood alone in the great hall. He wore no crown. He had set it aside, leaving it on the cold stone throne where it had rested for centuries. For the first time since his curse began, he did not want to rule. He only wanted to finish what he had started long ago. Outside the walls, enemies had gathered, not with noise but with intention. They sensed weakness. They sensed an ending. Alara stood in the tower above, holding her daughter close. The child could feel it too. She was quieter than usual, her small fingers gripping her mother's sleeve. "Mom," she asked softly, "is he going to leave?" Alara's throat tightened. "I don't know," she said honestly. She had spent the night walking the castle halls, touching the stone walls, feeling memories stir like shadows behind her eyes. Faces, voices, moments of warmth and loss brushed against her heart. She did not remember everything, but she remembered enough. She remembered love. At dawn, the horns outside sounded again, low and distant like a warning. The king lifted his head. "It is time," he said quietly. He walked toward the ritual chamber beneath the castle. This time he did not lock the door behind him. He did not hide his choice. He would end the curse himself. The magic circle was already prepared. Symbols glowed faintly on the floor, older than kingdoms. Once he stepped into it, there would be no return. His hands did not shake. "This is my sin," he said to the empty room, "and this is how it ends." He stepped forward. "Alara," her voice stopped him. He turned. She stood at the entrance, breathless, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "You are not doing this alone," she said. He shook his head. "I will not take your choice from you." "You are not," she replied. "I am giving it." Slowly she walked toward him. "I don't remember every life," she said. "I don't remember every promise, but I remember what it feels like to see you and ache for something lost." His voice broke. "That is not enough." "It is," she said gently. "Because love is not memory, it is choice." The magic circle began to glow brighter. "You will become mortal," he warned her. "I will lose everything I am." She met his eyes. "And you will gain everything you were meant to be." The castle trembled softly like it was holding its breath. Above them, the child watched from the stairs, her small heart full of fear and hope. Alara stepped into the circle with him. The magic reacted instantly. Light spread across the chamber, not harsh but warm, like sunrise breaking through night. The curse fought back, pulling at the king, trying to drag him into darkness one last time. He cried out, not in pain but in release. For the first time in centuries, his heart beat. Once. Then again. He fell to his knees, gasping, blood warm and real in his veins. The shadows peeled away from him like old skin. Outside, the clouds began to break. The enemies felt it and stopped. Whatever power they had sensed was gone. The curse shattered. The child cried out, not in fear but relief, as the strange weight she had always carried lifted from her chest. "Mom!" She ran forward. Alara held her tightly, tears finally falling. The king lay on the floor, weak, breathing, human, alive. Days passed. The castle changed. Dark stone lightened. Vines grew along the walls. The halls no longer echoed with sorrow. Servants whispered in disbelief as sunlight reached places it never had before. The former king did not sit on the throne again. He walked the gardens instead, slowly, learning the limits of a mortal body. Every breath felt like a miracle. Every ache reminded him he was alive. Alara stayed, not as a guest, not as a prisoner, but as his equal. They spoke often about regret, about forgiveness, about the weight of the past and the hope of tomorrow. "I cannot undo what I was," he said one evening. I don't ask you to, she replied, only to choose what you will be. The child laughed nearby, chasing light through the grass. The world beyond the castle did not forget easily. Some feared him still, some hated him, but he no longer ruled by fear. He did not need a crown. At dawn, Alara stood beside him at the highest tower. The sun rose fully now, warm and bright. He watched it with quiet wonder. I never thought I would see this, he said. She took his hand. Neither did I, she said. Below them, the castle stood not as a symbol of night, but as proof that even the deepest curse could be broken, not by power, but by love freely given. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the world moved forward, not into darkness, but into dawn.